Salutations, my fellow dudes and dudettes, and welcome to the finale of Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for Game Gear and Master System. Last time, we managed to obtain our last two Chaos Emeralds from Gimmick Mountain and Scrambled Egg. Now that we have all the emeralds, we can actually tackle the true final zone of this game, Crystal Egg, which arguably is probably the easiest zone in the entire game. I'm not kidding. Even on the Game Gear version, this level's really not hard. Like this big spike trap that I just fell into is probably the biggest hazard you have to deal with. I mean, there's still smaller spike traps scattered about, but they're like really not much of a threat, and there's not a whole lot. Yeah, see, look, I finished the level, the first act just now too. So there's also that. They're pretty darn sure when you know what you're doing. I mean, the second act is obviously going to be a little longer. Also because I got it done so quickly, my time score is through the roof. So that's awesome. Again, for every 50,000, you get to continue. But yeah, like I said, this zone is really easy. It's a little strange how the final zone that you have to the last level, the one you have to earn the right to get to, is surprisingly the easiest zone in the game. I'm willing to go as far to say that even the boss is pretty easy. It just takes forever. Mostly because of how the boss works, but we'll get to that a little bit later. As for the aesthetic, it's fine. Like, Robotnik's quite the narcissist, so he's got his face plastered all over the place. If you're wondering why I'm correcting myself repeatedly, it's because we Americans back then knew him as Robotnik, but everyone in Japan called him Eggman, and they just adopted the name later, so until we get to that point, I'm gonna do my best to refer to him as Robotnik. Plus, it's a much more menacing name. If you remember the giant gears from a Gimmick Mountain, these should seem rather familiar. They operate the same exact way. The only issue is that they're smaller, and I feel like they're a bit harder to work with as a result, because, as you saw, I get my jump a few times there, so that's a little annoying. The music's not bad. But yeah, there's like almost no enemies to be found at all. This is ironic. I guess it makes sense because of the amount of effort you had to put in to get all the emeralds, that I guess they figured, we're gonna give you a break with these next two acts. They're really easy. And it really shows, because once we get all the way up here from the springs, like breaking through all these blocks and whatnot, we'll be at the end of the act. And we'll be able to enter the final act of the game. So like, all we gotta do is go up this hill, and the end of the zone should be right... I keep overestimating. It should be right here. Yep, there we go. Alright, now that we managed to wrap up Crest Away, which was an absolute jug of a level, let's finally bring the fight to Robotnik and finally get our buddy Tails back. Now the thing that's weird is that, unlike the actual level, like the aesthetic of the final boss is actually quite different. You just got this giant void in the background, it's really weird. As for Robotnik himself, this boss could either be the easiest, it could either be the easiest or the most frustrating. But not because it's a hard boss, but because it takes so long. Basically, how it works is you're in this tube through the majority of the boss fight, and you just have to hit a Robotnik as many times as you can, and he does take quite a beating. I want to say it's like 10 hits maybe, off the top of my head. His means of attacks are usually those yellow star-like projectiles that tend to circle all over the place. Don't worry about getting hit by them when you're in the tombs, you're completely impervious to attacks. He's also got these little lightning things that he's going to shoot across the floor, but if you manage to hit him while he's doing this, I do believe you cause them to despawn. I'm not exactly sure how, but whenever he started shooting them and I managed to just barely avoid them leaping out of the tube, they would always just disappear. So I never understood that. However, the biggest problem you're gonna have to deal with is that electric attack that he shoots out. Basically, he just completely shocks the entire room. And if you try to hit him, and if you mistime your attacks, he could zap you, and you just die, and you have to restart the entire stage. So basically, you just want to wait for an opening, and like this boss could take forever because like you gotta have the patience for this. Otherwise, you're just gonna miss time coming out of that tube, and you're just gonna immediately die. Now, the good thing is, if you do barely manage to hit Robotnik before he sets off that attack, it does interrupt him, and he doesn't actually pull it off. So, you saw there that I just barely managed to nick him before I croaked. Also, as I commented on before, the boss music is actually a little different here. Compared to the Game Gear version. I'm not sure why, though. Like, it's the only track in the game that's actually different. So that's a little weird. But yeah, that's all there is. You're just constantly going in this tube. I'm not sure what I do not recommend coming out from the bottom or the right tube, because you could accidentally just shoot yourself right into one of the projectiles. So that wouldn't be any good. And I believe with that, yep, we're done. You can tell me yourself in the comments whether or not that was actually 8 to 10 hits. I wasn't counting. But Robotnik's making his getaway. I'm gonna put a little disclaimer, like, on screen a few moments before this part. I apologize for that. I'd rather you guys not, like, deal with that screen, that flashing. Oh yeah, by the way, we saved Tails. Yay! We did it! It's kind of funny how we get a results screen and then the credits, because it's like, why are we tallying? I guess they wanted to tally up your final score, so you make a note of it, but the other games don't exactly do that. I mean, I suppose, like, Sonic 1 on the Game Gear Genesis do that, but to my knowledge, no other game does that, like, ever again. But yeah, that's Sonic 2 for the Game Gear and Master System. I did not want to make this post commentary. I wanted this to be live, but I just ran into some snags recording it, so I decided to just do it off a Master System emulator. Granted, it's the more recommended means of playing this game because the Game Gear version is just that frustrating. Like, the screen crunch kills it for a lot of people, including myself. Like, the amount of time I actually put into practicing for this game is appalling. Because I initially wanted to do this before Paper Mario, but I believe at that time my capture device completely just broke down and I couldn't use it for to do that. And the new one I ended up picking up was only able to really record, like, off of HD games using the HDMI cable. Major hassle. Oh, by the way, I love this piece. Another one of my favorite tracks in this game. The credits music is great stuff. But yeah, if you're going to play this game, I implore you to play the Master System version. The Game Gear version is just too frustrating with the screen crunch. Like, you might even drop the game just, like, before you even get to stage 2, because most people that would try to play this game actually just they just get a game over repeatedly in stage one. They just never come back to this level, mostly due to that first boss. String Crunch makes that boss uh, an absolute monster of a of a difficulty spike. Also, for some reason, the music ends early. I did mention before that the Master System runs a little bit smoother than the Game Gear version, and it's kind of shown a little bit here because the music just sort of ends here, where the Game Gear version, because it runs rather slowly, the music as well as the like the scene right here with the credits uh, lines up a lot better. So that's really strange. And now that the credits are over, we look up into the sky and we see Sonic and Tails in the stars, like a little like picture. And it's supposed to play this little sound effect too, but again, the Master System version doesn't do that. It's so strange. But you might be wondering, what about that ending you get when you don't get all the Chaos Emeralds? Well, let's find out what happens when you don't manage to get them all. Oh, oh, oh no. Tails is he's gone. He's dead. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm glad. Well, I'm glad I actually made the main playthrough have all the cast heroes because that's quite morbid. Tails is gone. Anyways, now that we managed to get through Sonic 2 Game Gear Master System, it's time to get to the real Sonic 2, the one everyone's been waiting for, the one I've been waiting to get to because I absolutely love that game. So you already know what's coming up. Sonic 2 on the Genesis. Until then, I'm Sonic 007. I got a juice.